A millionaire rescues twin sisters, begging in an alley, and leaves them in his mother's care. When he returns from work, he finds one of them holding a paper that will change his life forever. The sky was darkening rapidly over the city, and Jack Sullivan, a 40-year-old businessman known for his wealth and philanthropy, was hurrying through the bustling downtown area. He had just left a tense meeting, and his body craved a drink. His driver had called to say he was stuck in traffic, so Jack decided to walk to his favorite bar a few blocks away. Turning a corner, he found himself in a narrow, poorly lit alley. Jack hesitated for a moment, his intuition telling him to turn back, but something urged him to move forward. That's when he saw them, two small figures huddled against a brick wall, almost invisible in the dim light. Jack stopped, his heart pounding. They were children, he realized with a tightening in his chest. Two identical girls, no older than 7 or 8. "Hello," he called softly, trying not to scare them. The girls jumped, their wide, frightened eyes fixed on him. As Jack approached cautiously, the details of their condition became clearer, and each detail felt like a stab to his heart. Their blonde hair was tangled and dirty, their pale faces smudged with grime. Their once colorful clothes were faded and torn, but it was their eyes that truly captured Jack. Big, blue, and filled with a fear and sadness no child should ever know. "It's okay," said Jack, crouching down to their level. "I won't hurt you. Are you hungry?" One of the girls, the one on the right, nodded hesitantly. The other remained still, her eyes never leaving Jack's face. "My name is Jack," he continued, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "And what are your names?" Silence. The girls looked at each other as if having a silent conversation. "I'm Emma," the girl on the right finally whispered. "This is my sister, Olivia." Jack smiled encouragingly. "It's nice to meet you, Emma and Olivia. Where is your mother?" At the mention of mother, Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Emma put her arm protectively around her sister. "Mommy disappeared," Emma answered, her voice trembling. "It's been 3 days." 3 days. Jack felt a wave of anger and compassion. These girls had been alone on the streets for 3 days. "Do you have any other relatives? Anyone we could call?" Both shook their heads. Jack found himself facing a dilemma. He couldn't just leave them there, but he also wasn't sure if he should take them with him. What if someone was looking for them? At that moment, Olivia's stomach growled audibly. The girl blushed, hiding her face against her sister's shoulder. Jack's decision was made in that instant. "Listen," he said, "I know you don't know me, but I want to help. How about we find something to eat and then figure out what to do next? My home isn't far from here." Emma and Olivia exchanged another look. Jack could see the conflict on their faces, the fear of trusting a stranger versus their desperate need for help. "Do you promise you won't hurt us?" Emma asked, her voice small but firm. "I promise," Jack replied solemnly. "You can trust me." Slowly, the girls stood up. Jack noticed how they leaned on each other, as if afraid they might collapse at any moment. His heart broke a little more. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. Emma nodded. But when she took a step forward, her legs wobbled. Jack reacted instinctively, catching her before she fell. To his surprise, the girl didn't pull away. Instead, she clung to him as if her life depended on it. "It's okay," Jack murmured. "I'll carry you." Carefully, he lifted Emma into his arms. Olivia hesitated for a moment before extending her arms, allowing Jack to pick her up as well. As he walked out of the alley, Jack was struck by a strange feeling. The girls in his arms felt right, as if they belonged there. It was an inexplicable, almost magical connection. Jack shook his head, pushing these thoughts aside. Now was not the time for daydreams. These girls needed urgent help, and he was determined to provide it. As they left the dark alley for the well-lit streets, Jack couldn't help but notice the curious glances from passers-by. A well-dressed man carrying 2 ragged children was certainly not a common sight. "We're almost there," Jack assured the twins, feeling their tension in his arms. When they finally reached the Sullivan mansion, Emma and Olivia were speechless. The imposing structure, with its white columns and well-tended gardens, seemed straight out of a fairy tale. "You live here?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Jack nodded, a shy smile on his lips. "Yes, this is my home." and you are very welcome here." As they entered, they were greeted by Louise, Jack's mother, an elegant woman in her 60s. Her gaze moved quickly from the girls to Jack, a silent question in her eyes. "Mother," Jack began, "these are Emma and Olivia. They need our help." Louise, always perceptive, understood immediately the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, she approached the girls with a warm smile. "Welcome, dears. We'll take care of you, okay?" The twins nodded timidly, still clinging to Jack. In the hours that followed, Jack and Louise dedicated themselves to caring for Emma and Olivia. A hot bath, clean clothes, and a substantial meal worked wonders. Gradually, the girls began to relax, their shy smiles lighting up the mansion in a way Jack had never experienced before. Later, when the twins finally fell asleep in one of the guest rooms, Jack found himself watching them from the doorway. There was something about them, something that touched a deep forgotten part of him. "What do you intend to do, son?" Louise asked softly, joining him. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Mother, but I can't abandon them. Something tells me they're here for a reason." Louise nodded, understanding. "Well, then I think we have 2 new residents, at least for now." As they stepped away from the room, leaving the girls to sleep, Jack couldn't help feeling that his life had changed irreversibly. What had begun as a casual encounter in a dark alley had turned into the start of something much bigger. Little did he know that Emma and Olivia carried a secret that was about to turn his world upside down. The sun had barely risen when Jack entered the guest room where Emma and Olivia slept. The twins were curled up against each other, their faces finally relaxed in deep sleep. Jack felt a tightness in his chest as he remembered the previous night and the conditions in which he had found them. "They're still sleeping," Louise whispered, appearing beside her son. Jack nodded, turning to his mother with a worried expression. "Mother, I need to go to work. I have an important meeting I can't postpone. Can you—" "Of course, dear," Louise replied before he even finished asking. "I'll take good care of them. Don't worry." Jack hesitated for a moment, his eyes returning to the sleeping girls. "If they need anything at all, call me immediately." Louise smiled, gently touching her son's arm. "Everything will be fine, Jack. Now go before you're late." With one last glance at the twins, Jack left, leaving Louise alone with the girls. A few hours later, the sound of light footsteps woke Louise, who had dozed off in a chair near the bed. She opened her eyes to find Emma and Olivia awake, looking around with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Good morning, dears," Louise said softly, trying not to startle them. "Did you sleep well?" The twins turned to her, Emma instinctively placing herself slightly in front of Olivia. "Where's Jack?" Emma asked, her voice small but firm. "Jack had to go to work, but he'll be back later," Louise explained. "In the meantime, how about we have some breakfast? You must be hungry." The girls exchanged glances before Olivia gave a small nod. Louise guided them to the kitchen, where a plentiful table awaited. The twins' eyes widened at the amount of food. "Help yourselves," Louise encouraged, noticing how the girls hesitated. Slowly, Emma and Olivia began to eat, first cautiously, then with more enthusiasm. Louise watched closely, her heart aching at the evident hunger in the children's eyes. "So," Louise began casually as the girls ate, "do you like drawing?" Olivia nodded timidly. "I do," she murmured. "That's wonderful." Louise smiled. "As we have lots of colored pencils and paper. After breakfast, we could do some drawing. What do you think?" The twins agreed, seeming to relax a bit at the idea. Later, in the living room, while the girls drew, Louise tried again to establish a connection. "Do you live nearby?" she asked gently. Emma stopped drawing, shooting a quick glance at Olivia before answering. "No, we moved around a lot." Louise nodded, choosing her next words carefully. "And your mother? Where is she now?" Olivia's pencil slipped, leaving a mark on the paper. Emma put hers down, staring at Louise with a mix of fear and distrust. "Mommy disappeared," Emma said, her voice trembling. "Not long ago." Louise felt her heart tighten. "I'm sorry to hear that, dear. Do you know where she went?" Olivia began to cry silently. Emma hugged her, casting a protective look at Louise. "We don't want to talk about it," Emma declared firmly. Louise nodded, respecting the girl's decision. All right, we don't have to talk about anything that makes you uncomfortable. The rest of the morning passed in a lighter atmosphere. Louise showed the girls the garden, where they ran and played like normal children their age. For a few precious moments, their traumas seemed forgotten. However, Louise could not ignore the signs of abuse and neglect she saw. How the girls flinched at sudden movements, how they hesitated before accepting food or gifts, how they seemed constantly on guard. When Jack called in the mid-afternoon to check on them, Louise couldn't hide her concern. "They're traumatized, Jack," she said quietly, watching the twins play in the garden through the window. "Something terrible happened to these girls." "Do you think we should call the authorities?" Jack asked, his worry evident in his voice. Louise hesitated. "I'm not sure. They seem so frightened. I'm afraid they'd feel betrayed if we do that now." "I understand," Jack sighed. "I'll try to leave work early today. Maybe I can get them to open up a bit more." After hanging up, Louise returned to the garden. Emma and Olivia were sitting under a large tree, whispering to each other. When they saw Louise approach, they fell silent. "Hi, girls," Louise began softly, sitting on the grass near them. "I want you to know that you're safe here. No one will hurt you or force you to do anything you don't want to." The twins looked at her, their blue eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. "Jack and I want to help," Louise continued. "But we can only do that if you trust us. Whenever you're ready to talk, we'll be here to listen." Olivia looked at Emma, as if seeking permission. Emma hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Our mum told us not to trust anyone," she said quietly. But I think we can trust you. Right, Liv?" Olivia nodded timidly. Louise felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It was a small step, but a significant one. "Thank you for trusting us," she said, her voice choked. "So I promise we'll do our best to keep you safe." As the girls returned to their play, now with slightly more genuine smiles, Louise couldn't help thinking about the mystery surrounding Emma and Olivia. Who was their mother? Why were they running? And why did Louise feel that these questions were only the beginning of something much larger? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Louise knew the coming days would be crucial. Something told her that the arrival of these girls in their lives was no mere coincidence. It was the start of a journey that would change them all forever. The twins' second day at the Sullivan mansion dawned sunny and promising. Louise woke up early, determined to make Emma and Olivia as comfortable as possible. She prepared a special breakfast, filling the table with pancakes, fresh fruit, and freshly squeezed orange juice. When the girls came downstairs, still in pajamas and with messy hair, their eyes widened at the lavish spread. "Good morning, dears," Louise smiled warmly. "I hope you're hungry." Emma and Olivia exchanged quick glances before sitting down shyly. Louise noticed that Emma seemed particularly tense, her hand frequently going to the pocket of the jacket she insisted on wearing over her pajamas. "Everything okay, Emma?" Louise asked gently. "You look a bit worried." The girl startled slightly. "I'm fine," she murmured, avoiding Louise's gaze. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed more relaxed. She picked up a pancake and began eating it eagerly. "This is really good," she said, her voice a bit louder than the day before. Louise smiled, unhappy to see at least one of them opening up. "I'm glad you like it, Olivia. After breakfast, I thought we could do something fun. What do you think?" The twins exchanged glances again, that silent communication passing between them. Emma was the one who answered. "What kind of activities?" "Well, we have a pool in the backyard. Or we could have a picnic if you prefer. We also have board games, books. What do you like to do most?" Olivia brightened visibly. "Can we swim? It's been so long since we've gone swimming." Louise smiled, but noticed Emma's worried expression. "Of course you can, dear, but only if both of you want to." Emma hesitated, her hand going to her jacket pocket again. I think I'd rather stay out of the water," she said quietly. "That's fine," Louise assured. "You can sit by the pool while Olivia swims. I'll find some swimsuits for you." After breakfast, Louise took the girls to the backyard. The pool sparkled under the morning sun, inviting and refreshing. Olivia could barely contain her excitement, while Emma remained cautious. While Olivia played in the water under Louise's watchful eye, Emma sat on the pool's edge, her feet dipped in the cool water. Louise noticed she still wore the jacket, despite the heat. "Emma, dear," Louise began softly, sitting down beside her. "Aren't you hot in that jacket?" Emma shrugged, her hand instinctively touching the pocket again. "I'm fine," she murmured. Louise decided not to press the issue. Instead, she changed the subject. "You two seem very close. Have you always been this close?" Emma nodded, a small smile appearing on her lips. "Yes, it's always been just the two of us and—" She stopped abruptly, as if she'd said too much. "And your mother?" Louise completed gently. Emma was silent for a moment, her eyes fixed on the water. "Yes," she finally replied. "Sire, but now it's just us." At that moment, Olivia swam over to them, her face glowing with joy. "Emma, are you sure you don't want to come in? The water feels great." Emma shook her head. "No, Liv, you know I can't." Louise frowned, intrigued by the choice of words. Not that she didn't want to, but that she couldn't. Before she could ask, Olivia spoke again. "Louise, thank you for letting us swim. We haven't had a decent bath in weeks." Louise's heart tightened at those words. "Weeks? You've been on the street all that time?" Olivia nodded, apparently unaware of the weight of her revelation. "Yes, ever since Mommy—" "Olivia!" Emma interrupted sharply. "We're not supposed to talk about that, remember?" Louise looked from one girl to the other, feeling she was on the verge of an important revelation. "Girls," she said softly, "I know it's hard to talk about what happened, but we're here to help. If you can tell us more, maybe we can find a solution." Emma seemed to be fighting an internal battle. Finally, she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "Mommy left us 3 weeks ago. She said it was for our safety, that she would come back for us. But she never returned." Louise felt her heart break. 3 weeks alone on the street. It was a miracle Jack had found them. "I'm so sorry, dears," Louise said, fighting back tears. "You've been very brave. But now you're safe here, I promise." The rest of the day passed in a blur of activities. Louise kept the girls busy and happy, trying to push away the shadows of their past, even if only momentarily. They played board games, read stories, and even helped bake cookies in the kitchen. That evening, when Jack returned from work, he found the three of them on the sofa in the living room, watching an animated movie. The twins seemed more relaxed than the day before, although Emma still kept a vigilant posture. "How was your day?" Jack asked quietly, while the girls were distracted by the film. Louise sighed. "We made progress, but there's still so much we don't know. They were alone on the street for 3 weeks, Jack." 3 weeks? Jack closed his eyes for a moment, processing the information. "My God," he murmured. "What are we going to do?" Louise looked at the twins, who now laughed at something on the screen. "For now, we keep earning their trust." "There's more to this story, Jack, and something tells me that whatever Emma is keeping in that pocket is the key to all of it." Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the girls. The mystery surrounding Emma and Olivia only seemed to deepen, but one thing was certain. They would do everything they could to protect these children and uncover the truth behind their abandonment. The sun was already setting when Jack finally arrived home. The day at the office had been a whirlwind of meetings and important decisions, but his mind had been constantly on Emma and Olivia. He could hardly wait to see how the girls had spent their day. Entering the living room, Jack was greeted by a scene that warmed his heart. Louise sat on the sofa with Emma and Olivia nestled on either side, all absorbed in a storybook. For a moment, Jack stood at the door, not wanting to interrupt the peaceful moment. It was Olivia who noticed him first. "Jack!" she exclaimed, her face lighting up with a smile. Emma, always more cautious, sat up straight, her watchful eyes on Jack. "Hello, girls," Jack smiled, entering the room. "Looks like you had a good day." Louise closed the book, smiling at her son. "We had a wonderful day, didn't we, girls?" Emma and Olivia nodded, though Jack noticed Emma still seemed a bit tense. "How about a snack before dinner?" Louise suggested, getting up. "I'll fix something quick in the kitchen." When Louise left, Jack sat in the armchair opposite the girls. "So what did you do today?" Olivia, excited, began to describe the swimming, the games, and the cookies they baked. Emma remained silent, her hand unconsciously going to the pocket of her jacket. Jack noticed the gesture and remembered what his mother had said about Emma hiding something. He decided to approach the subject directly but gently. "Emma," he began softly, "my mother mentioned that you seem to be holding something important. Would you like to tell me what it is?" Emma froze, her eyes widening with fear. Olivia stopped talking, looking worriedly at her sister. "It's all right," Jack assured. "No one will take anything from you. We just want to help." Emma looked at Olivia, as if seeking approval. Olivia gave a small nod. With trembling hands, Emma slowly pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket. She held it for a moment, clearly conflicted. "Mommy said to show this only to the right person," Emma whispered. "She said we'd know who it was." Jack felt his heart speed up. "And you think I'm that person?" Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I think so. You look a bit like the picture Mommy showed us once." Carefully, Emma extended the paper to Jack. He took it gently, aware he was being entrusted with something extremely precious to the girls. Unfolding the paper carefully, Jack felt his breath catch. It was a birth certificate, old and creased but still legible. His eyes scanned the document, stopping abruptly at the mother's name, Sarah. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Sarah, a name he hadn't heard in years, yet it still hit him like a punch in the stomach. "Jack!" Olivia's voice pulled him back to reality. "Do you know our mother?" Jack looked at the girls, their blue eyes so familiar now that he knew the truth. How had he not noticed before? They were Sarah's eyes. "Yes," he answered, his voice rough with emotion. "I knew your mother. A long time ago." Emma leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Do you know where she is? Can you help us find her?" Jack felt a knot form in his throat. I don't know where she is right now, but I promise we will find out." At that moment, Louise returned with a tray of sandwiches and juice. She stopped upon seeing the expression on Jack's face. "What happened?" she asked, placing the tray on the table. Jack looked at his mother, then back at the girls. "Mother, I think we need to talk. Emma and Olivia, they're Sarah's daughters." Louise let out a small gasp of surprise. "Sarah? But that means—" Jack nodded, unable to say the words aloud. Emma, always observant, looked from Jack to Louise. "What does that mean? Do you know our mother?" Jack took a deep breath, knowing what he said next would change everything. "Emma, Olivia, there's a strong possibility that I am your father." The silence that followed was deafening. The girls looked at Jack with a mixture of shock and confusion. Olivia was the first to react, her eyes filling with tears. "Our father," she whispered. "But Mommy said our father was dead." Jack felt his heart break. "No, dear, I'm very much alive, and if I had known about you, I would have been there from the beginning." Emma, always the protector, pulled Olivia close. "How can we be sure? How do we know you're telling the truth?" Jack looked to Louise for support. She nodded encouragingly. "We can do a DNA test," Jack suggested gently. "That will prove if I'm really your father. But even if I'm not, I want you to know I'm here for you. We'll figure out what happened to Sarah and keep you safe." The girls looked at each other, another silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Emma spoke. "Okay, we can do the test." Jack felt a wave of relief and anxiety. "Thank you for trusting me. I promise that no matter what, I'll take care of you." As Louise began distributing the sandwiches, trying to bring some normalcy back to the situation, Jack couldn't help but think of Sarah. Where was she? Why had she kept the girls a secret? And, more importantly, what danger threatened them so badly that Sarah abandoned her own daughters? One thing was certain. All their lives had changed irrevocably, and Jack was determined to solve the mystery, no matter the cost. Jack held the birth certificate in his trembling hands, his gaze fixed on the name that had unleashed an avalanche of memories. Sarah. The world around him seemed to disappear, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the weight of the past. "Jack?" Louise's voice pulled him back to reality. Are you all right? He blinked, looking at his mother and then at the twins, who watched him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Jack took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. Yes, I'm fine, he replied, his voice hoarse. Turning to Emma, he asked gently, You said your mother told you to show this paper to the right man. What else did she say? Emma exchanged a glance with Olivia before answering. She said we'd know who the right man was when we saw him, that he would protect us and that he might be our father. Jack felt his heart speed up. Can't you think I'm that man? Emma nodded slowly. You look like the picture Mommy showed us once, and you seem to care about us. Olivia, who had remained silent until then, spoke. You knew our mother, didn't you? Jack looked at the girls, so much like Sarah it was almost painful. Yes, he replied softly. I knew Sarah. A long time ago. Suddenly, memories flooded his mind, as vivid as if they had happened yesterday. Flashback, 8 years ago, Jack was walking across the university campus, absorbed in his thoughts about the upcoming business law exam, when he bumped into someone. Books fell to the ground and he quickly knelt to help pick them up. I'm sorry, I was distracted and... His words died when he looked up and met the most intense blue eyes he had ever seen. It's okay, the young woman smiled, picking up the last book. I was daydreaming too. Jack Sullivan, he introduced himself, extending his hand. Sarah Thompson, she replied, shaking his hand. The touch sent an electric current through Jack's body. That casual encounter turned into coffee, which turned into dinner, which turned into late nights studying together in the library. Sarah was brilliant, studying political science with plans to become a human rights lawyer. Jack was fascinated by her passion and determination. Months passed, and they fell deeply in love. Jack had never felt like that before. With Sarah, he could be himself, without the pressures and expectations that came with the Sullivan name. But then came the dream internship for Jack in London. It was an opportunity he couldn't refuse, but it meant being away from Sarah for months. Go, Sarah encouraged him, though Jack could see the sadness in her eyes. It's an amazing opportunity. We'll be fine. They promised to keep in touch, to make the long-distance relationship work. For a while they did, but gradually calls became less frequent, emails shorter. When Jack returned to the United States 6 months later, Sarah had disappeared. No one knew where she had gone. Jack searched for weeks, but eventually had to accept that she had chosen to move on without him. End of flashback. Jack. Louise's voice pulled him back to the present. You're crying. He touched his face, surprised to feel moisture on his cheeks. Wiping the tears quickly, he looked at Emma and Olivia, who watched him with wide eyes. I'm sorry, he said, trying to smile. It's just that seeing your mother's name brought back a lot of memories. Did you love her? Olivia asked innocently. Jack felt a lump in his throat. Yes, he replied honestly. I loved her very much. Emma, always the cautious one, frowned. Then why didn't you stay with her? Why did she tell us our father was dead? Jack felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Dead? I don't know why she would say that. We parted ways when I went to London. When I came back, she was gone. I never knew. He stopped, realization hitting him like lightning. Sarah must have discovered she was pregnant after he left. But why hadn't she told him? Why had she run away? Louise, sensing her son's turmoil, intervened. Girls, this must be very confusing for you, but I want you to know we're here to help. We'll find out what happened to your mother and why she had to leave you. Emma nodded slowly, still holding Olivia's hand. Our mommy said it was dangerous to stay with her, that bad people were after her. Jack and Louise exchanged worried looks. What kind of trouble was Sarah facing that made her abandon her own daughters? Do you remember anything about these bad people? Jack asked gently. Olivia shivered slightly. There was a man who sometimes followed us. Mommy was always really scared when she saw him. Jack felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. Whether or not they were his biological daughters, he was determined to keep them safe and uncover the truth. Listen, he said, leaning forward. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I promise you two things. I will do everything I can to find your mother, and I will protect you no matter what." The girls looked at him, a mixture of hope and caution in their eyes. Emma was the first to speak. "Do you really think you could be our dad?" Jack smiled softly. "There's a strong possibility, and if you agree, we can take a test to be sure." Olivia's eyes widened. "A test? Will it hurt?" Louise laughed softly. "No, dear, it's just a quick swab on your cheek. It doesn't hurt at all." The twins looked at each other again, holding another silent conversation. Finally, Emma nodded. "Okay, we can do the test." Jack felt a wave of relief and anxiety. "Thank you for trusting me. Regardless of the results, I want you to know you're safe here." While Louise got up to prepare a snack for everyone, Jack couldn't help looking at the birth certificate once more. Sarah Thompson, the name that had once changed his life and was now turning it upside down again. Wherever Sarah was, Jack was determined to find her, not just for the girls, but also to understand why she had kept such a big secret for so long. And most importantly, to protect her from the danger that forced her to make such a painful decision. The mystery was only beginning to unfold, and Jack knew the following days would be crucial. But looking at Emma and Olivia, he felt a fierce determination growing inside him. Whatever happened, he would protect them. It was the least he could do for the woman he once loved and the children who might be his daughters. The next morning dawned with an atmosphere of anticipation at the Sullivan mansion. Jack had barely slept, his mind full of unanswered questions and hypothetical scenarios. He went downstairs to find Emma and Olivia already in the kitchen with Louise, all three involved in preparing breakfast. "Good morning," Jack said, trying to sound casual despite the anxiety he felt. The twins looked at him, Emma with her usual caution and Olivia with a timid smile. "Good morning, Jack," they replied in unison. Louise gave her son a meaningful look, silently encouraging him to address what weighed on everyone's minds. After they all finished eating, Jack took a deep breath and began, "Girls, I know yesterday was full of emotions and revelations, but if you're willing, I'd like to talk a bit more about your mother and what happened." Emma and Olivia exchanged glances, that silent communication again. Emma answered, "What do you want to know?" Jack chose his words carefully. "Well, you mentioned your mother disappeared recently. Can you tell me more about that?" Olivia bit her lip, her eyes filling with tears. Emma put a protective arm around her sister before speaking. "It was 3 months ago. We were living in a small apartment somewhere. Mommy was always nervous, looking over her shoulder." Jack nodded encouragingly. "And what happened that day?" Emma closed her eyes for a moment, as if reliving the memory. "Mommy woke us up in the middle of the night. She was crying and said we had to leave immediately. We grabbed our backpacks. She always made us keep a backpack ready and left." Olivia continued, her voice trembling. "We walked for a long time. It was dark and cold. Then Mommy took us to a shelter and said she had to leave us there for a while." Jack felt his heart tighten. "Did she say why?" Emma shook her head. "Only that it was for our safety, that bad people were after her, and she didn't want us to get hurt. She promised she'd come back as soon as it was safe." "But she never came back," Olivia whispered, a tear running down her cheek. Jack fought the urge to hug the girls, not wanting to overstep. Instead, he asked softly, "Do you have any idea who might have been after your mother?" Emma frowned, thinking, "There was a man who sometimes followed her, tall with a scar on his face. Mommy always got really scared when she saw him." Jack exchanged a worried look with Louise. The situation seemed more serious than they initially imagined. "Girls," Jack said, leaning forward, "I want you to know I'll do everything I can to find your mother and make sure you're safe. But I need your help. Is it okay if I hire someone to help us look for her?" The twins looked at each other before Emma nodded slowly. "You think you can find her?" Jack smiled gently. "I'll do my best. I have some contacts who can help." After the conversation, Jack withdrew to his office, leaving the girls in Louise's care. He immediately picked up the phone and called an old college friend, Mark Davidson, now a respected private investigator. "Mark, it's Jack Sullivan. I need your help urgently." Half an hour later, Mark arrived at the mansion. Jack filled him in on the situation, providing all the details the twins had shared. "So," Mark said, flipping through his notes, "we're looking for Sarah Thompson, missing for 3 months, possibly on the run from someone dangerous, and there's a good chance these girls are her daughters." Jack nodded, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Far as I know, it's not much, but it's all we have." Mark gave a reassuring smile. "I've worked with less, Jack. I'll start right away. I'll check all records for Sarah Thompson in the last few months, focusing on women with twin daughters. I'll also investigate any suspicious activity involving a woman of her description." "What about the man with the scar?" Jack asked. "I'll have my contacts look into that too. If he's involved in anything illegal, there might be records or rumors in the underworld." Jack felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "Thanks, Mark. Please keep me posted on any developments, no matter how small." After Mark left, Jack returned to the living room, where Louise was reading a book to the twins. The domestic scene made him smile, despite the worry he felt. "Everything all right?" Louise asked, noticing his expression. Jack nodded. "Mark is on the case. Hopefully we'll have some leads soon." Emma looked at Jack with hopeful eyes. "Do you really think you'll find our mother?" Jack knelt in front of the girls, looking them in the eye. "I promise I'll do everything in my power to find her and bring her back to you safely." Olivia, in a sudden impulse, threw herself into Jack's arms, hugging him tightly. After a moment's hesitation, Emma joined the hug. Jack felt his heart fill with an emotion he couldn't name. Regardless of what the DNA test revealed, he knew his life was now irrevocably linked to these girls. Holding Emma and Olivia, Jack made a silent promise. He would find Sarah, unravel the mystery behind her disappearance, and do everything he could to keep this newly discovered family united and safe. The path ahead would be challenging, but Jack was determined to face any obstacle that arose. The search for answers had begun, and with it, a new journey for all of them. Night fell over the Sullivan mansion, bringing with it a stillness that should have been comforting. However, the silence was abruptly broken by a sharp scream coming from the twins' room. Jack, who had been reviewing documents in his office, rushed immediately to the room. Opening the door, he found Olivia sitting up in bed, shaking and crying, while Emma held her protectively. "What happened?" Jack asked softly, approaching carefully not to frighten them further. "A nightmare," Emma answered, her voice tense. "Olivia had another nightmare about the bad man." Jack sat on the edge of the bed, his heart heavy at seeing the fear in the girl's eyes. "Want to talk about it, Olivia?" The girl sniffed, burying her face in her sister's shoulder before mumbling, "He was chasing us again, the man with the scar. He wanted to take Mommy away." Jack exchanged a worried glance with Louise, who had arrived silently and stood in the doorway. These nightmares were becoming more frequent, and Jack couldn't help but wonder how much they reflected real events from the girl's past. "It's all right now," Jack assured, resisting the urge to hug them. "You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you." It took some time, but eventually Olivia calmed down enough to go back to sleep. Emma, however, remained alert, her eyes fixed on Jack with a mix of gratitude and distrust. "Does this happen often?" Jack asked gently. Emma nodded. "Almost every night, sometimes me, sometimes Olivia, but it's always about him." Jack felt a wave of anger and protectiveness. Whoever this bad man was, he had left deep scars on the girls. The following morning, Jack decided they all needed a change of scenery. "How about we go to the park today?" he suggested over breakfast. The twins seemed excited by the idea, but Jack noticed a shadow of apprehension in their eyes. Louise agreed that it might be good for the girls to get out a bit. At the park, Jack watched Emma and Olivia carefully. Initially, they seemed relaxed, running on the grass and playing on the swings. However, whenever someone passed close by, especially men, the girls grew visibly tense. At one point, a tall man ran past them, and Olivia immediately hid behind Emma, who in turn looked to Jack as if to make sure he was still there. "Are you all right?" Jack asked, approaching them. Emma nodded stiffly. "Yes, we just remembered something." Jack knelt to their level. "You know you can tell me anything, right? I'm here to protect you." Olivia looked at him with tearful eyes. "Promise you won't let the bad man get us." "I promise," Jack replied firmly, feeling his heart tighten. Back at the mansion, Jack received a call from Detective Mark. "Jack, I have some information," Mark said, his voice tense. "Sarah Thompson doesn't exist in recent records." Jack felt his stomach sink. "What do you mean?" "I mean she was living under a false name. I found records of a woman named Claire Bennett, who matches Sarah's description and has twin daughters. She rented apartments in 3 different cities over the past 2 years, always leaving abruptly." Jack closed his eyes, processing the information. "And the last address? An apartment in Boston. She left there exactly 3 months ago, leaving everything behind. Neighbors reported seeing a woman leaving in a hurry in the middle of the night with 2 children. Any sign of her since then?" Mark hesitated. "Nothing concrete, but, Jack, there are rumors in the underworld about a woman being pursued by a dangerous group. I'm not sure if it's related, but the descriptions match." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "What about the man with the scar?" "Still investigating, but I have a lead. There's a known mercenary who fits the description. His name is Victor Krauss. He has ties to various criminal organizations." Jack thanked Mark and hung up, his mind spinning with the new information. Sarah, or Claire, was clearly running from something very serious. But what and why? That night, as the twins slept, Jack and Louise discussed the situation. "They're traumatized, Jack," Louise said softly. "Sayos, the fear of this bad man is deeply ingrained in them." Jack nodded, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "And now we know Sarah was living under a false name. She must be in real danger. What are we going to do?" Jack looked at a photo of Sarah he'd found in his old college albums. The smiling woman in the picture seemed so far from the scared, fleeing person the girls described. "We'll keep looking," Jack said determinedly. "And in the meantime, we'll do everything we can to help Emma and Olivia feel safe and loved." Louise smiled sadly. "They're getting attached to you, you know, especially Olivia." Jack felt a surge of emotion. "I know, and I'm getting attached to them too. No matter what the DNA test says, Louise, these girls are part of my life now." As the mansion fell into silence for the night, Jack couldn't stop thinking about Sarah. Where was she? What had driven her to a life of secrets and running? And more importantly, how could he protect Emma and Olivia from the shadows of the past that seemed determined to catch up with them? With those questions weighing on his mind, Jack made a silent promise. He would find the truth no matter the cost, for Sarah, for Emma and Olivia, and for the family they might have been, and maybe still could be. The shrill sound of the doorbell echoed through the Sullivan mansion, shattering the quiet of the night. Jack, who was in his office reviewing Mark's latest information, felt his heart race. It was almost 11 p.m. Who could it be at this hour? Moving quickly, he descended the stairs, finding Louise already at the door, hesitant to open it. "Who is it?" Jack asked, approaching cautiously. "Jack." A trembling, familiar female voice came from the other side. "Jack, it's me. Sarah." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Jack and Louise exchanged shocked looks before he finally opened the door. There, standing on the doorstep, was Sarah. Her once long and shiny blonde hair was now short and lifeless. Her blue eyes, once full of life and determination, were now sunken and fearful. She looked as though she had aged a decade in the 8 years since he had last seen her. "Sarah," Jack whispered, barely believing his eyes. Without warning, Sarah threw herself into Jack's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, she repeated between sobs. Louise, recovering from the initial shock, closed the door quickly and guided Sarah and Jack into the living room. "I'll make some tea," she said, giving them a moment alone. Jack gently sat Sarah on the sofa, offering her a handkerchief. "Sarah, what happened?" "The girls, they're so worried." At the mention of the twins, Sarah seemed to panic. "Emma and Olivia, are they okay? Are they safe?" Yes, Jack assured quickly. "They're asleep upstairs. They're safe. I promise." Sarah let out a sigh of relief, but the tension in her shoulders remained. "Jack, I'm so sorry. For everything." You must hate me. Jack shook his head, sitting beside her. I don't hate you, Sarah. I'm confused, worried, and yes, a bit hurt, but mostly I want to understand what's happening. Sarah took a deep breath, accepting the cup of tea Louise brought before she discreetly withdrew. It's a long story, Jack, and it's not pretty. We have time, Jack said softly. Start at the beginning. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the cup in her hands. It all started after you went to London. I found out I was pregnant a few weeks later. I was shocked, scared. I didn't know what to do. Jack felt a lump in his throat. Why didn't you tell me? I was going to, Sarah said, her voice breaking. But then I met Daniel. The name made Jack remember the girls mentioning a bad man. Who is Daniel? Sarah visibly shuddered. At first he seemed perfect, caring, attentive. He said he'd help me with the babies, that we'd be a family. I was vulnerable, Jack, scared and alone. I fell for his words. Jack felt a mix of anger and sadness. What did he do? At first it was subtle, little lies, manipulation. He convinced me to cut off contact with my family, my friends, with you. Sarah paused, silent tears streaming down her face. After the girls were born, things got worse. He became controlling, abusive. He threatened to hurt the girls if I tried to leave. Jack clenched his fists, fighting the rage inside him. How long did this go on? Years, Sarah whispered. I tried to run away many times, but he always found us. He has connections, Jack, dangerous connections. And 3 months ago, Sarah looked up, a flash of determination in her eyes. I found something that could incriminate him. He figured it out and things got really bad. I knew I had to get the girls out no matter what. Jack absorbed everything, his heart heavy with the pain Sarah and the girls had endured. Why did you leave them at the shelter? Sarah covered her face with her hands. I didn't want to. Believe me, Jack, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but Daniel was tracking us. I had to throw him off, keep them safe. I planned to come back as soon as it was safe, but what? He found me, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've spent the last few weeks on the run, trying to lose him for good. I finally managed and came straight here. I knew you'd take care of them. Jack felt a surge of emotions, anger at Daniel, compassion for Sarah, love for the girls. Sarah, he said softly, why didn't you ever tell me about the twins? They are as they are mine, aren't they? Sarah nodded, more tears falling. They are, Jack, I'm sorry. At first it was fear and confusion. Then it was Daniel. He threatened to kill you if I ever told the truth. I was terrified. Jack took a deep breath, processing it all. What do we do now? Is Daniel still after you? Sarah trembled. Probably. He won't give up easily, Jack. Not when he knows I have information that can destroy him. What kind of information? Evidence of his criminal activities, trafficking, money laundering, you name it. He's dangerous, Jack. Very dangerous. Jack stood up, a fierce determination in his eyes. We're going to the police now. Sarah looked at him, surprised. You believe me? After everything. Jack knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. Sarah, we've been through a lot. We have a lot to talk about, so much to settle. But right now, the most important thing is keeping you and the girls safe. You're my family. The words seemed to break something inside Sarah, and she began to cry again, this time tears of relief. Jack held her, feeling the weight of lost years but also the hope of a future together. At that moment, a small sound on the stairs made them turn. Emma and Olivia stood there, their eyes wide with shock and hope. Mommy, Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. Sarah let out a sob, opening her arms. My girls! The twins rushed forward, throwing themselves into their mother's arms. Jack watched the reunion with tears in his eyes, knowing that despite the challenges ahead, they would face them together, as a family. The morning sun filtered through the living room windows of the Sullivan mansion, illuminating the tired but relieved faces of its occupants. Jackie, Sarah, Emma, and Olivia sat together, the girls nestled between their parents, reluctant to let Sarah out of sight for even a moment. Louise had prepared a hearty breakfast, insisting that everyone needed to eat something after the emotionally exhausting night. While the children ate quietly, Jack and Sarah exchanged looks, knowing it was time to reveal the whole truth. "Girls," Sarah began softly, "I know you have many questions. About me, about Jack, about everything. I think it's time to tell the whole story." Emma and Olivia looked at their mother with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Jack nodded encouragingly, holding Sarah's hand in support. Sarah took a deep breath and began, "8 years ago, your father and I met in college. We fell in love, but then he got an amazing opportunity to study abroad in London. Shortly after he left, I found out I was pregnant with you two." "Why didn't you tell Dad?" Olivia asked innocently. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, guilt evident on her face. "I should have told him. It was a mistake not to. I was scared, confused, and didn't want to ruin Jack's big opportunity." Jack gently squeezed Sarah's hand. "I would have come back if I knew," he said softly. Sarah nodded. "I know that now. But then I met Daniel." At the mention of the name, the twins tensed visibly. Sarah continued, "At first, Daniel seemed kind and caring. He offered help and support, and I, foolishly, accepted. That's when things started going wrong," Emma said quietly, her eyes showing understanding beyond her years. Sarah nodded sadly. "Yes, dear. Daniel was not who he seemed. After you were born, he became controlling and abusive. He isolated us from everyone, threatening to hurt you if I tried to leave." Jack felt anger surge within him. "For years?" he asked. Sarah looked at Jack, fear in her eyes. "Daniel is a dangerous man, Jack. He's involved in criminal activities, drug trafficking, money laundering, even human trafficking." She shuddered visibly. "He used me as a facade, a perfect family to hide his dirty dealings." The twins clung closer to Sarah, seeking and offering comfort. Jack felt his heart tighten at the fear in his daughter's eyes. "For years I tried to find a way out," Sarah continued. "But Daniel always found us. He has connections everywhere, police, government, even overseas. It seemed impossible to escape." "Until 3 months ago," Jack concluded. Sarah nodded. "I accidentally discovered evidence of his operations. Documents, photos, names of people involved. Daniel realized it and things got really bad." She paused, tears flowing silently. "I knew I had to get you girls out, no matter what." Emma, surprisingly, carried on. "That's when Mommy woke us up in the middle of the night. She said we had to run away." Olivia sniffled. "Mommy was so scared. I'd never seen her like that before." Sarah hugged the girls. "I knew I had to take you away from him, but Daniel was tracking us. That's why I left you at the shelter. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I had to throw him off. Keep you safe." Jack leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Sarah, we need to take this evidence to the police. It's the only way to stop him once and for all." Sarah shook her head, fear evident in her eyes. "It's not that simple, Jack. Daniel has people everywhere. If we try to go to the police, he'll know. And then—" She didn't finish the sentence, but the fear in her eyes said it all. "Then what do we do?" Jack asked, feeling helpless for the first time in a long time. Sarah looked at the girls and then at Jack. "I have a plan, but it's risky and I need your help, Jack." Jack nodded without hesitation. "Whatever it takes. We're in this together now." The twins looked from one parent to the other, beginning to understand the complexity of their family situation and the real danger they faced. "Dad," Emma said hesitantly, testing the word, "you'll protect us from the bad man, right?" Jack felt his heart break and mend in the same instant. He knelt in front of the girls, looking them in the eye. "I promise both of you. I'll do everything I can to keep our family safe. Daniel will never hurt you or your mother again." Olivia, in a surprising gesture, threw herself into Jack's arms, hugging him tight. Emma followed soon after, and Sarah joined the family embrace. For a moment, they stayed like that, united, facing fear and uncertainty together. When they finally separated, there was a new determination in everyone's eyes. "What's the plan?" Jack asked Sarah. Sarah took a deep breath. First, we need to make sure the evidence is safe. I hid it before coming here. Then, we need to find someone trustworthy in the authorities, someone Daniel can't buy or threaten. Jack nodded, his mind already working on the possibilities. I have some contacts who might help. Let's do this the right way, Sarah. Let's end this once and for all. The twins looked at their parents with a mix of fear and admiration. Emma, always the most perceptive, asked, "And if it doesn't work? If the bad man finds us?" Sarah hugged her daughters. "Then we run again together, but this time we have your father by our side. And believe me, with Jack with us, our chances are much better." Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also a fierce determination. He looked at his newly reunited family and made a silent promise. No matter what lay ahead, he would protect them. Daniel and anyone else who dared threaten his family would have to go through him first. The full truth was finally exposed, with all its complexities and dangers. But along with it came new hope. United, they would face whatever the future held. The battle for their family's safety and freedom was just beginning, but Jack knew that together they had a real chance to win. The autumn sun bathed the park in golden light, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Jack watched with a smile as Emma and Olivia ran across the grass, their laughter echoing in the air. Sarah sat on a nearby bench, her eyes never leaving the girls, but with a slight smile on her lips that Jack hadn't seen in days. It had been a week since Sarah's return, and although tension still hung over them like a dark cloud, moments like this brought a sense of normalcy they all desperately craved. Jack approached Sarah, sitting beside her. "They look happy," he commented softly. Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "So it's been so long since I saw them this carefree." Jack took Sarah's hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll fix this, Sarah. They'll have a normal life, I promise." Sarah was about to reply when something caught her attention. Her entire body tensed, and Jack felt the exact moment fear took hold of her. "Sarah, what is it?" he asked, alarmed. Sarah's eyes were wide with terror, fixed on a distant point. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's here." Jack followed her gaze and saw, about 100 yards away, a tall man with a scar on his face. He stood at the edge of the park, apparently watching the people, but Jack knew instinctively he was looking for Sarah and the girls. "Don't move," Jack instructed calmly, though his heart pounded. "I'll get the girls. When I come back, we'll walk calmly to the car. Understand?" Sarah nodded rigidly, unable to take her eyes off Daniel. Jack stood up casually and walked toward the twins, forcing himself to keep a normal pace. "Emma, Olivia," he called, keeping his voice light. "It's time to go." The girls looked at him, ready to protest, but something in his expression made them stop. Emma, always perceptive, cast a quick look toward Sarah and then back to Jack, instantly understanding something was wrong. "Let's go, Liv," Emma said, taking her sister's hand. "Time to go home." Jack picked Olivia up, holding Emma's hand firmly. They walked back to Sarah, who stood as they approached. "Walk in front of me," Jack murmured. "I'll stay behind to keep watch. Walk normally." The group began moving toward the parking lot. Jack could feel Daniel's gaze on his back, but resisted the urge to look over his shoulder. Every step felt like an eternity. When they finally reached the car, Jack quickly placed the girls in the back seat while Sarah got into the passenger seat. He took one last look around before getting in and driving off. The ride back to the mansion was tense and silent. The girls, sensing the seriousness of the situation, remained quiet. Sarah was pale, her hands trembling slightly. As soon as they arrived, Jack activated the mansion's security system. "Louise!" he called, his voice tense. "I need you to stay with the girls for a moment." Louise appeared quickly, sensing the urgency in Jack's voice. She took Emma and Olivia to the kitchen, promising to make them hot chocolate. Jack guided Sarah into his office, closing the door behind them. "How did he find us?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Sarah shook her head, tears beginning to fall. "I don't know. He always seemed to know where we were. No matter where we went." Jack ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "We need to increase security. I'll call a private firm right now, and maybe we shouldn't go out for a while." "The girls will be devastated," Sarah murmured. "They were so happy today." Jack knelt in front of Sarah, holding her hands. "I know, but it's temporary, until we resolve this once and for all." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with fear and determination. "Jack, what if we give him the evidence? Maybe then he'll leave us alone." "No," Jack said firmly. "If we do that, he'll never leave us alone. There will always be the threat that we might talk. No, we need to end this permanently." "How?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "He has people everywhere. How can we possibly beat him?" Jack thought for a moment. "Not everyone can be corrupted. There must be someone we can trust. Maybe my friend Mark can help. He's a private investigator, but he has reliable contacts in law enforcement." Sarah hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but we have to be extremely careful. If Daniel finds out we're planning something—" "He won't find out," Jack assured. "We'll do this very carefully. In the meantime, I'll make sure this house is the most secure place in town." At that moment, there was a soft knock on the door. "Dad." "Mom?" Emma's voice came from the other side. Jack opened the door, finding Emma and Olivia standing there, worried expressions on their faces. "Is everything all right, dears?" Olivia ran to Sarah's arms, while Emma looked seriously at Jack. "It was him, wasn't it? The bad man?" Jack knelt to Emma's level. "Yes, it was. But don't worry. He won't come near you, I promise." Emma nodded, then surprised Jack by hugging him tightly. "I trust you, Dad," she whispered. Jack felt his heart tighten with a mix of love and fierce determination. He hugged Emma back, looking over her shoulder at Sarah, who held Olivia. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice firm. "Together." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes but a hint of a smile on her lips. "Together," she repeated. The following hours were a whirlwind of activity. Jack hired an elite security company to reinforce the mansion's protection. Additional cameras were installed, the alarm system was updated, and guards were discreetly positioned around the property. That night, with the girls finally asleep, Jack and Sarah sat on the veranda, looking at the now heavily guarded garden. "I'm sorry for all this, Jack," Sarah said softly. "You didn't ask for any of this." Jack took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Don't apologize. You and the girls are my family. There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect you." Sarah looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you for everything." Jack smiled softly. "Always." As the sky grew darker, bringing the first stars of the night, Jack and Sarah remained there, united in their love and determination. The danger was still out there, waiting, but inside that house, protected not only by walls and alarms, but by the love of a reunited family, there was hope. And that hope, Jack knew, would be their most powerful weapon against the shadows that threatened to consume them. The Sullivan mansion was lit up and full of life that Saturday night. Jack had decided to go ahead with the annual charity gala, arguing that cancelling it would raise suspicion. Besides, the presence of dozens of influential guests could offer an extra layer of protection. Sarah, dressed in an elegant navy blue gown, moved among the guests with a tense smile. Her eyes constantly scanned the room, torn between maintaining appearances and keeping an eye on Emma and Olivia, who played with other children under supervision in a corner of the room. Jack, impeccable in his tuxedo, chatted with a group of executives, but his attention was divided. He made eye contact with the head of security, who gave a slight nod, indicating all was under control. Louise approached Sarah, offering her a glass of sparkling water. "How are you holding up, dear?" she asked softly. Sarah forced a smile. "I'm fine, thank you, just a bit nervous." Louise gently squeezed Sarah's arm. "It's all right. Security is tight, and Jack won't take his eyes off you." At that moment, a waiter approached, offering canapes. Sarah took one absent-mindedly, but when her eyes met his, she felt her blood run cold. Those eyes, she would recognize them anywhere. The waiter smiled, a cold smile that never reached his eyes. "Hello, Sarah," Daniel said quietly. "Miss me?" Sarah dropped the glass, which shattered on the marble floor. The sound drew everyone's attention, including Jack, who immediately realized something was wrong. "How?" Sarah stammered, taking a step back. Daniel laughed softly. "You should know you can't hide from me, dear. Now, why don't you come with me quietly? We don't want to make a scene, do we?" Louise, sensing danger, positioned herself protectively in front of Sarah. "I think you should leave," she said firmly. Daniel ignored Louise, his eyes fixed on Sarah. "Come on, Sarah. The girls need their mother, right?" The mention of the twins made Sarah react. "Stay away from them," she hissed. At that moment, Jack arrived, placing himself between Sarah and Daniel. "I think it's time for you to leave," he said, his voice low and threatening. Daniel smiled, a smile devoid of warmth. "Jack Sullivan, I presume. At last, we meet. Sarah talked a lot about you, back in the day." Jack felt his jaw tighten. "Leave my home now, or I'll have you removed." The guests began to notice the tension, worried murmurs spreading through the room. Emma and Olivia, sensing something was wrong, approached cautiously. Daniel saw them and his smile widened. "Ah, my girls, come give Daddy a hug." "You're not our father," Emma shouted, surprising everyone with her courage. Olivia hid behind her sister, trembling. Daniel's expression darkened. "I see you've been filling their heads with lies, Sarah. That's not very nice." Jack signaled the security team, who began moving discreetly closer. "This is your last chance to leave peacefully," he warned. Daniel laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. "You really think you can stop me? I have connections you can't imagine, Sullivan. One phone call from me, and your precious company collapses." "Your threats don't work here," Jack replied calmly. "We have the evidence, Daniel. Your empire is about to fall." For a moment, fear flashed in Daniel's eyes, quickly replaced by fury. In a swift movement, he pulled out a gun, pointing it at Sarah. The guests panicked, many running for the exits. Jack moved instinctively to protect Sarah and the girls. "Nobody move," Daniel shouted. "Sarah, you're coming with me now, or I swear I'll shoot." Sarah trembled, but her voice was firm when she answered, "No, Daniel, it's over. I'm not afraid of you anymore." Daniel snarled, his finger dangerously tightening on the trigger. "You'll regret this, you ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything." At that moment, taking advantage of Daniel's distraction, one of the guards approached from behind. With a quick move, he grabbed Daniel's arm, disarming him. Other guards quickly pinned him to the floor. Daniel struggled, shouting threats and obscenities. "This isn't over. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I'll destroy all of you." Jack approached, his voice cold and controlled. "It's over, Daniel. The police are on their way, and they're very interested in having a chat with you." As Daniel was taken away, still screaming threats, Sarah collapsed to her knees, sobbing with relief and fear. Emma and Olivia ran to her, hugging her tightly. Jack knelt beside them, wrapping them all in his arms. "It's okay now," he murmured. "You're safe. It's over." Louise coordinated the exit of the remaining guests, assuring everyone that the situation was under control and apologizing for the incident. Minutes later, the police arrived. Detective Mark, Jack's friend, led the team. He approached Jack with a grim but triumphant smile. "Good job, Jack," he said. "Glad we have Daniel in custody, and with the evidence you provided, he won't see the light of day for a long time." Sarah looked at Mark, her eyes still red from crying. "Are you sure? He has so many connections." Mark nodded confidently. "We only trusted agents we knew were incorruptible. The operation to bring down Daniel's network is underway as we speak. It's the end of the line for him." Jack helped Sarah to her feet, still holding the girls close. "Time, what happens now, sir?" he asked. "We'll need statements from all of you," Mark explained. "But that can wait until tomorrow. For now, get some rest. We'll keep a team on guard here tonight, just in case." When the police finally left, taking Daniel with them, the mansion felt strangely silent. The cleanup crew worked discreetly, removing the traces of the interrupted party. Jack, Sarah, the girls, and Louise gathered in the living room, all still processing the night's events. "Is it really over?" Olivia asked quietly, nestled in Sarah's lap. Sarah kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Yes, my love. It's over. The bad man can't hurt us anymore. Emma, always pragmatic, looked at Jack. What happens to us now? Jack smiled softly, reaching out to gently touch Emma's face. Now, we start our life as a family. Without fear, without secrets. Sarah looked at Jack, tears of gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Jack took Sarah's hand, intertwining their fingers. Always, he responded simply. As the night wore on, the family remained together, finding comfort in each other's presence. The danger had passed, but the bond forged through this ordeal remained strong. A new life awaited them, full of possibilities and, for the first time in a long time, hope. The day dawned with palpable tension at the Sullivan mansion. Sarah woke early, her heart pounding at the thought of what lay ahead. Today, she would finally face Daniel, the man who had terrorized her family for years. Jack found Sarah in the kitchen, staring into an untouched cup of coffee. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Sarah took a deep breath, meeting Jack's eyes. "I have to be, for Emma and Olivia, for all the other victims." The twins entered the kitchen, their faces a mix of anxiety and determination. "We want to go too," Emma declared, her voice firm despite her small stature. Sarah hesitated, exchanging a look with Jack. After a moment, she nodded. "All right, but if it gets too hard, you'll go back home with Louise, okay?" The drive to the station was silent, each family member lost in their own thoughts. Upon arrival, Detective Mark greeted them and led them to a private room. "Sarah," Mark began gently, "we need you to tell us everything, every detail you can remember about Daniel's activities." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, gathering courage. When she opened them again, there was fierce determination in her gaze. "I'll tell you everything." For hours, Sarah spoke. She described the start of her relationship with Daniel, how he gradually became controlling and abusive. She detailed the criminal activities she witnessed: drug trafficking, money laundering, and most shockingly, human trafficking. He threatened to harm the girls if I tried to run or tell anyone," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "And I lived in constant fear." Jack held Sarah's hand tightly, offering silent support. The twins listened, their eyes wide, finally understanding the full extent of the danger they had faced. As Sarah spoke, the detectives took furious notes. Mark occasionally asked questions for clarity or more details. "Sarah," Mark said when she finally finished, "you understand your testimony will be crucial to bringing Daniel and his entire organization down." Sarah nodded, exhausted but determined. "Yes, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes." Based on Sarah's testimony and the evidence she had provided, the police quickly obtained an arrest warrant for Daniel. Within hours, an elite team was mobilized to capture him. Sarah, Jax, and the twins waited anxiously at the station, time seeming to drag. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mark entered the room, a tired but triumphant smile on his face. "We got him," he announced. "Daniel is in custody." A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Sarah embraced Jack and the girls, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. "Can I see him?" Sarah asked, surprising everyone. Mark hesitated. "Are you sure?" "You don't have to do that." Sarah nodded firmly. I need him to know I'm not afraid anymore." Minutes later, Sarah stood before Daniel's cell. He glared at her, his eyes filled with fury and disbelief. "How could you do this to me?" he snarled. "After everything I did for you and the girls." Sarah met his gaze, her voice calm and firm. "You did nothing for us except terrorize us. It's over, Daniel. You have no more power over me or my family." Daniel lunged at the bars, making Sarah recoil instinctively, but she held her ground, her eyes never leaving his. "This isn't over," Daniel shouted. "You'll regret this, Sarah." Sarah shook her head, a small smile of triumph on her lips. "No, Daniel, it's over, and the only one who will regret anything is you." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Daniel screaming impotently in his cell. Back in the waiting area, Sarah was greeted by emotional hugs from Jack and the girls. "You were so brave, Mommy," Olivia whispered, her eyes shining with admiration. Emma, always the most insightful, looked at Sarah with new understanding. "Is that why we were always moving, running away from him?" Sarah nodded, caressing her daughter's face. "Yes, honey, but we don't have to run anymore. We're safe now." Jack embraced his family, feeling a profound sense of relief. "Let's go home," he said softly. "We have a lot to celebrate." That night, back at the Sullivan mansion, the family gathered in the living room. The weight of years of fear and secrets had finally been lifted. "What happens now?" Emma asked, her voice full of hope. Jack smiled, hugging Sarah and the girls. "Now we begin our new life, together without fear." Sarah looked at her family, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in years. The path to healing would be long, she knew, but with love and support, they would make it. "I'm so proud of you both," Sarah said to the twins. "You've been so brave throughout all of this." Olivia smiled. "We learned from you, Mommy." As the night went on, the family stayed together, sharing stories, laughing, and sometimes crying. It was the start of a new chapter in their lives, one of healing, love, and above all, freedom. Sarah knew there would still be challenges ahead. Trauma doesn't disappear overnight, but looking at Jack and their daughters, she felt true hope for the future for the first time in years. They had faced the worst together, and now they were ready to build something beautiful from the ashes of the past. Autumn had given way to winter, and then to spring when the day finally came for Daniel's verdict. The Sullivan family sat together in the front row of the courtroom, their hands clasped in mutual support. When the judge announced the sentence, multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole, a collective sigh of relief filled the room. Sarah let her tears flow freely, years of fear and tension finally dissolving. Jack held her tightly, whispering words of comfort. Emma and Olivia, now 8 years old, hugged their mother, their faces a mixture of relief and hope for the future. In the months that followed, life at the Sullivan mansion bloomed with new energy. Sarah, determined to turn her experience into something positive, began training to become a counselor for victims of domestic abuse. "I want to help others find the courage I found," she explained to Jack one evening, her eyes shining with purpose. Jack looked at her with admiration, seeing how Sarah had transformed from the frightened woman who arrived at his door months ago into a force of nature, determined to make a difference. "You're amazing, you know," he said softly, taking her hand. Sarah smiled, feeling a familiar warmth spread through her chest. Over the months, she and Jack had grown closer, rediscovering the feelings they had shared long ago. "Jack," she began hesitantly, I think I'm ready to give us a chance. If you still want that, of course." Jack's face lit up with a radiant smile. "Sarah, nothing would make me happier." Their first kiss was gentle and full of promises, a new beginning for both of them. Meanwhile, Emma and Olivia flourished in their stable new environment. Emma discovered a passion for writing, often filling notebooks with imaginative stories. Olivia, on the other hand, proved to be a talented artist, her colorful paintings soon decorating the mansion's walls. "They're doing so well in school," Sarah commented to Jack one day, watching the girls play in the garden. "It's like they can finally be real children." Jack nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "They're incredible, just like their mother." As their lives stabilized, Jack and Sarah discussed ways to give back to the community. It was during one of these discussions that the idea for the Sullivan Foundation was born. "We could help at-risk children," Jack suggested, "and families affected by abuse." Sarah agreed enthusiastically. "We could offer counseling, shelter, legal assistance, all the things I wish I had when I was running from Daniel." The Sullivan Foundation soon became a reality, with Jack and Sarah working tirelessly to establish it. The twins, understanding the importance of their work, often helped out by making posters and participating in fundraising events. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the girls' 9th birthday. Jack and Sarah decided it was the perfect occasion for another big event, their wedding. The Sullivan mansion was decorated with flowers and lights, the garden transformed into a fairy tale setting. Guests arrived, including many families who had been helped by the foundation. Emma and Olivia, dressed in lovely bridesmaid dresses, ran around excitedly, helping with the final preparations. "Mommy, you look beautiful," Olivia exclaimed when Sarah came down the stairs in her wedding gown. Sarah smiled, hugging her daughters. "Thank you, dear. You both look absolutely enchanting." The ceremony was simple and emotional. Jack and Sarah exchanged vows, their words full of love and promises for the future. The twins watched with shining eyes, finally seeing their family officially united. After the "I do" and the kiss that sealed their union, there was a special surprise for Emma and Olivia. Jack knelt in front of the girls, holding a document in his hands. "Emma, Olivia," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you know I've loved you as my own daughters from the very first day. Well, now it's official." He showed them the document, new birth certificates for each of them, listing Jack as their father. The girls were shocked for a moment before throwing themselves into Jack's arms, tears of joy streaming down their cheeks. "Now we're a real family," Olivia exclaimed. "We always were," Emma corrected softly, "but now it's official." The celebration that followed was full of laughter, dancing, and joy. The Sullivan family, now officially complete, was at the center of it all, their faces radiant with happiness. Later that night, when most guests had departed, Jack and Sarah found a moment of quiet together. "Are you happy?" Jack asked, holding his new wife in his arms. Sarah looked at the garden where Emma and Olivia still danced, their dresses twirling under the lights. She thought of everything they had overcome, the hardships they had faced and conquered together. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, tears of happiness in her eyes. "Thank you for never giving up on us." Jack kissed her forehead gently. "Never. We're a family, Sarah, now and always." Across the garden, Emma and Olivia watched their parents. "Do you think we'll be this happy someday?" Olivia asked dreamily. Emma smiled, putting an arm around her sister's shoulders. "I'm sure we will live, but for now I'm just happy our family is finally complete." The two sisters stood there, arm in arm, watching their parents dance under the stars. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and hope. In the Sullivan mansion, a family that had been forged through pain and adversity now celebrated their new beginning. The shadows of the past had been banished, replaced by the light of love and unity. Jack, Sarah, Emma, and Olivia had found not only each other, but also the strength to overcome their fears, heal their wounds, and build a bright future together. It was more than a happy ending. It was the beginning of a new journey, one they would face united, as the family they had always been destined to be.